Welcome to One Tired Teacher, episode 98, 13 remarkable ideas to help kids fall in love with reading. So this week, we are going to focus on some things that we can do to actually help kids fall in love with reading, love reading, enjoy reading, just bring it back to the forefront and make it a passionate subject that kids really enjoy. Last week, I talked about the 7 dreadful things that we're doing to kill the love of reading. That was in episode 97, and I'll link to it in the show notes. And it was so difficult. It was such a difficult conversation. And I know it hit some people really hard and made some people feel defensive. And you know what? Sometimes we need to look at what we're doing, how we're participating in systems, and how we can do it differently. So this week, we're going to talk about how we can change that. I hope you stick around.
Welcome to One Tired Teacher. And even though she may need a nap, this teacher is ready to wake up and speak her truth about the trials and treasures of teaching. Here she is, wide awake. Wait, she's not asleep right now, is she? She is awake, right? Okay. From Trina Debery Teaching and Learning, your host, Trina Debery.
Hey, so today we are going to talk about some things that we can do to actually re-engage our students with learning. I told you last week about a story that was really bothered me, and it was about a group of 5th graders that I was doing a book study with, and am doing a book study with, and we were meeting for the first couple of times, and they just seemed really apathetic about it, and it felt wrong. It felt wrong on so many levels. And you can listen to episode 97, 7 Dreadful Ways We Are Killing the Love of Reading, if you want to hear like the full story. But I'm going to give you the short version right now. So they just didn't seem excited. And finally, one of the young girls, she spoke up and she asked me, she said, "Miss Debery, are we going to have to take a test after we finish reading this?" And it really felt like someone stabbed me or punched me. Like it was like, ugh. And it just was heartbreaking. And it felt like a travesty to me for kids to think that that's really what reading is testing. And I talked about, 7 different ways that I really feel like we are hurting the love of reading with our students. And I mentioned them, I talked specifically about them, and I went into more detail on that episode. So you might want to go check that out. But like, just to recap, like I talked about how we are over testing and we are eliminating choice and we're using reading as a punishment. We're forcing them to read. Like, you must read for 20 minutes every night, and we're requiring them to keep logs and summaries, and we're using boring programs, and we're even eliminating libraries. Now, some of these things are out of our control. For example, like we can't help how often we are required to test. Like, that's not something that we can help. And I mean, hopefully you're pushing back on that. I know that some teachers are really pushing back, and I feel like we are often, the way that the system is set up for the whole competition and competitive and evaluation and those kinds of things, that definitely is like a form of oppression that separates us from one another, so that we feel like we don't have strength in numbers. And the ironic part is we actually do have strength in numbers. And if we bound together, we united together, we stood together, we rebelled together, we would have a different system in place. And I know that many teachers in my county are afraid, and they've said, well, they can fire all of us. And I honestly would love to just see them try that. Like, if you're going to fire every single teacher, and then who are you going to get to replace them? We can't even get subs, for goodness sakes. And maybe we would have people in the beginning, but they are not going to last. They're not going to last in this type of system. So, and that's, I feel like, a scare tactic. And sometimes I'm like, if we bound together and we did what we know is right, and we pushed back against some of these insane practices, then maybe we would start to see something different. And, and maybe some people feel like they just don't have enough energy for that, because I've been there. I have felt, and I might even be there myself at this moment, feeling like I don't have it in me. I don't have it in me to fight this fight. I'm just tired of fighting this fight. But then on the other hand, I'm like, no, like that there's so much that we could be doing so much better. So, okay. So even if there's some things we can't control, there are things we can control. We don't have to assign logs and summaries. We don't have to force kids to read for certain amounts of time. We don't have to eliminate choices. There's things that we can do. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about some things that we can do to change this, because there are some things that are in our control, or at least things that we can do that someone might not necessarily even notice. And I'm going to say that one of the things that I have noticed as the media specialist this year, being like my top goal of getting kids to love to read, and especially because they haven't provided me with any technology. And so my hopes of like having this space full of places to even research or like dream or be, think critically and all these different things with technology, I haven't been able to do that. So my main focus has been on the reading aspect, which was already and always a priority, like the top priority. And then I'm working on a makerspace, which I'm super excited about as well. And I'm tying literature to it because I want kids to really deeply understand the problems that that characters are experiencing, or even that, in nonfiction text, the problems that exist as far as like scientifically and as an engineer standpoint. I want them to experience these things and start to really think critically and think about how they're going to solve these problems. So I'm super excited about that. And those are the things that I'm really focusing on. But I've seen a huge change in the attitude and atmosphere of the media center. And one of the things that I've noticed are kids they're excited. Like they actually come in happy. They come in happy. They leave happy. They are jumping up and down for books. Yesterday I took there's this first grade class that comes. Everybody comes once a week. First grade class came came ever since the beginning of the year. And these two little girls are like, "Do we have Pinkalicious books?" And I'm like, "We don't have any Pinkalicious. Like we don't have them in our media center. I don't know why. Like I'm new to the media center this year at this school. And so, I have to analyze the collection and determine what we need. And I've been making a list of things that kids specifically ask for, because I think it's really important to provide books that they actually want to read. And so I'm like, okay, you don't have any Pinkalicious. And every week, nope, no Pinkalicious. It's like they think I just have to go out and buy them that week, and that's not how it works. But I'm like, oh man. So I did, however, have a cart of books that I was going to use as if they didn't return their book, like that they would take one of those books, because it was either a book that was weeded from the media center, which means basically it should go in the trash, or it was I had a huge donation from a friend of mine that taught. Now, I used to have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of books in my classroom. I had a massive classroom library that I gave away when I resigned from teaching several years ago. And yes, I've come back into education, but I was like, okay, I've given all my books away. I don't have any books. So when my friend was retiring this summer, I was like, okay, I'm going to come get your books. So I came and got it. And she had tons of new books. She had so many books. So I took a lot of books and I have them on this cart. We got a new teacher in third grade and she didn't have a classroom library. So I rolled the cart to her. This is like a library cart if you've ever seen one. So it has like 6 shelves on it. I roll it to her classroom and I'm like, here, you can use this cart because you don't have any books and your kids need to have books. And she ended up bringing it back to me just recently, even though I said she could keep it for the whole year. She brought it back to me and I'm like, well, all right. So I was like, it was a mess. It was like a disaster. And I'm like, I got to clean this up. So I started cleaning up and I also started like looking through it to see what was new, like what are new here that I can pull out, because I want to give every student in the school, which is about 700 students, I want to give them all a brand new book. And I'm trying to decide if I want to do that at Thanksgiving, like as a gratitude thing, or at Christmas, or when I want to do it, but I want to do it soon. So I'm pulling out books and guess what I find? I find like about 6 to 10 Pinkalicious books. And I'm like, oh, yes. So I gather them up and I walk down to that first grade class and I'm like, look what I have. And I'm like, would you like to keep these in your classroom? And the two, like a bunch of little girls, but the one little girl that I've thought of this whole time, she literally got up, started jumping up and down. She was so excited. Then others started jumping up and down, and the teacher was like, oh, yes. And it was like, I felt like the book fairy. Like it was so, it was so fun. Excuse me. It was like such a rewarding moment to see. And then I also found Scooby-Doo, which is another book that this fourth grade student loves, and we only have one of. And I found like 5 different ones. So I took them to that classroom, and it was so exciting to see them so happy to see a book. Like it just is so happy. And then there's another student that she was like, all she wanted to read about was ballerinas. Well, we only had like 2 books that had anything to do with ballerinas in the whole media center, and she read them. So I'm like, I could not convince her to read anything else. And then I found Kylie Jean, and I'm like, and this little girl that I'm talking about is a little bit of a drama queen, according to her teacher. And I had to keep her one day. I'm like, let me keep her. I'll bring her to you in a few minutes, because she just hadn't found the right book. And I'm like, she can't leave without the right book. So I found Kylie Jean, and I started reading the back of it to her in a country accent. And she was like, okay. But now she reads Kylie Jean every single week. And then I found Kylie Jean is something about a ballerina. And I'm like, look. And she was so excited. So it has been, it's like more and more of those kind of moments. And I am seeing kids reading in the hall. They're talking to me about books when they see me. They're like, did you get, whatever, has Dog Man come back? Is there a Diary of a Kid there yet? And, do you have books about the animals, like what if you had an elephant's nose or something like that? Those are like the adaptation books that, I can't think of her name. Pip, is it Pip? I have to think of it because she's really great. In 3rd grade, love those books. So it really just comes down to some of those kind of things that can make such a huge, huge difference. So let's talk about those things. Before we talk about that, I do want to share with you, because I mentioned Makerspace and tying literature to Makerspace. I am working on a course on Makerspace, which I'm excited about, and I'll talk about, in the next several months. And it's just such an unbelievable way for kids to really get their, minds working and their hands moving and their critical thinking and their creativity to really blossom. And I have a freebie. I have a free Makerspace moment in literature that takes a story and then goes through some standards-based activities as far as literacy goes. It's really more for an early primary student in elementary school, but then you do a makerspace response. So like you take a problem in the story and they have to create a solution to the problem, and then they talk about it and they revise it, they plan, they go through the whole engineering design process, and then they compare and contrast solutions at the end. But that's free. I have a freebie, so I'm going to link to it in the show notes so you can grab that if you're interested, and you can kind of get a feel of what my makerspace moments in literature look like. And honestly, my typical ones that I have in my store, which I'll also link to those that I have in my store, go through more standards. This particular freebie goes through, I think, 1 or 2 of the reading standards, but it does do the whole design process. So you can check those out. I'll link to those in the show notes. So let's talk about the 13 remarkable ideas to help kids fall in love with reading. So the very first idea is one of the most important, and that is to read to them. Read to them. Like, they need to be read to. Even the older kids need to be read to. I just had an interview with Kobe Yamada, the author of What Do You Do with a Problem? What Do You Do with an Idea? What Do You Do with a Chance? And his new book called Maybe. Oh, I love it. I love all of his books. And I actually have Makerspace resources to go with them, and I'll link to those in the show notes. But it was such an amazing experience. It was inside of STEM Club. So if you missed STEM Club, then if you're a member of STEM Club, then go check it out, because it's still available. You can still watch the replay. But if you're not a member of STEM Club, which I'm going to link to that too, even though we're at the end, you still might want to go back and look at there's 3 months of incredible STEM resources and authors chats and panels. In fact, I'm participating in a panel. This episode will already be out. The panel will already have occurred on Sunday evening. So I'm excited about that. But it was such an amazing experience talking to a real author, and especially one that I admire so much. I love him. I think he's incredible. And I showed some of the interview to my news crew that I work with, my students, my 5th graders. And they were so excited. And they're like, do we have these books in the media center? And just that 5 or 7 minutes that I showed them sparked their interest in reading the books. And I was like, you know what? I don't actually think we have these, which is so, I have them. They're in there because I have them in a display case because I think they're so cool. But I'm like, I'm buying these for the media center. They need to have these books. I can't believe we're a STEM school. How do we not have these books? We need, or we're a STEAM school. We need to have these books. So anyway, just the art of reading to them and introducing them to new authors and introducing them to new characters. It's just, it's magical. It really brings the book to life, especially when you're doing different voices. I had so much fun this week. I read to kindergarten and I read A Room on the Broom, which is so fun. And they were laughing and they, really loved it. And they were making good predictions and they were using the illustrations to help make meaning. You're hitting on so many standards, and it's just such an important time to do. I can't imagine not reading to my class every single day. I literally would read to them every single day. Even when we were doing close reading and I may not read the whole entire story, I'd read parts of it. I always had a time after that, that we just read a no strings attached reading time. And I just think it's so important. And I even had at one point, my students wanted to read. They wanted to be the ones that read to the class. They wanted to sit in my chair and they wanted to read to the class, and I would totally let them rotate this on a rotating basis, and I would get some work done. That was 10 minutes of time I could sit back and answer an email or quickly grade something. It was great, and they were so engaged and they loved it. And if they weren't engaged, if they were sitting around, playing around when someone else was reading, then they unfortunately didn't get a chance to do that. Or they did, and it was a nice little lesson on the side, not out in front of everyone, a nice little lesson on the side about how respectful people are and how it feels better when people are listening. And so it was just really special. So reading to them is just magical. And that's what I was saying. So making sure that you're reading the voices. I love reading voices. I love to read a story with different character voices because I think that talk about fluency. It really brings some things to life. And you have the ability to introduce different genres and a 3rd grade teacher was reading who was Frida, I can't think of her last name, but we're looking at Spanish Heritage Month, and so she was reading about this particular person and those biographies of who is or who was, that series of biographies where they look like they have the bobblehead. Well, then the next week, the kids were diving for the biography section because we have a lot of those books, and I'm yelling to the teacher. I'm like, Miss Weber, did you just read, what's going on? What's happening why are they all fighting in the biography section? And she had just finished reading that. And so just because she read that, then everyone wanted to read a biography. It was 90% of her class checked out biographies. And I'm like, that doesn't happen unless you're reading books to them. So that is where the magic is. When I used to read Junie B. Jones to my kids, all they wanted to do was read Junie B. Jones. When I read Mo Willems books, all they want to do is read Piggy and Gerald and Mo Willems books. When I read Kobe Yamada, that's all they want to read is Kobe Yamada books. It's just, you just have to introduce them. So that's the first one. And I think that's really one of the most important ones. And we can't not have time for that. That has to be the most important thing, the most important part of our day. All right, number 2, remarkable reason number 2, or idea, a remarkable idea for helping them fall in love with reading, is modeling a passion for reading. That is so crucial. When we act we love it and we're excited and we can't wait to share the book with them, or book is so funny. Even when I first read at the beginning of the year to kindergarten and I read the book with no pictures, So Adorable by BJ Novak, I was like, this book doesn't have any pictures. And I'm like stomping around and I'm like, I can't even believe I would show this book to you. Can you say what? And they're like, what? And so I made a really big deal out of it. And I'm like, but this book is so silly. I'm like, you're not even going to believe how silly it is. And I went on and on and on. And then I read it to them and they loved it. They were literally falling out of their seats, laughing. Like they loved it. And I just think we have to model that passion, how important it is to read. When we did independent reading time every single day in my classroom, because I really believe when you allow children to practice reading, they become better readers. Did you hear that? Did you catch that? If you're multitasking, come back to me. I want to say it again. When we let children read, not force, when we let and allow them to read, they become better readers. So, so important. So when I would let my kids, which was every day, when we would do independent reading, they were, most of the time I was pulling groups, off to the side. I was doing reading conferences. I was doing running records. Like I was doing all that stuff when this was happening. They would respond to some story that we did together as like a shared or interactive read aloud. And then they would have about 20 minutes or so to do that response. And then they would transition into independent reading time. If they finished early, then they had longer independent reading time. And then they would be able to move away from their seats and sit in comfy spots. Much harder now with COVID, which is disappointing, but that made a huge difference. That actually sustained their reading longer when they were able to like lay on the floor, I had a couch, in my classroom. And then I've had a boat in my classroom and a tent and things like that. So those are the kinds of things that really get kids excited. Like I have really comfy furniture in the media center and they lay on it and they sit on it and they've got comfy seats and beanbag chairs and flexible seating, and it all makes a huge difference. They will actually sit there and read. So it's really important. But when you model that passion for reading, it makes all the difference. So as I was saying, like I would be busy, but there were some days that I'm like, you know what? I want to read with you. And so I'd sit on the couch and of course the kids would want to come sit next to me and they'd want to read up with me. And, again, pre-COVID, and this was when I was in the classroom, and I'm like, and then sometimes they'd try to talk to me and I'm like, I'm reading. Like, you can't interrupt me. I'm reading. And one time I actually was like really reading. I mean, not that I wasn't reading all the time, but I mean, like I was reading like the Hunger Games or something. I was reading something at home that I really was like, I want to know what was going to happen. So I'm like, I would read and we'd have the timer set and we'd all be reading and the timer would go off and I'd be like, oh man, I just got to this good part. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? And they're like, let's read for 5 more minutes. And it was awesome. It was so awesome. And even, I'm going to share this too. This is a true story. We had a jar that we would fill up like every time we were complimented in the hall or we did a really good job as a class. They would earn these. They weren't marbles because I didn't have marbles, but I have heard of that. They were these little like counting blocks. They were like really small. So I would like put a handful of counting blocks in the jar. So by the time the jar got to the top, we would choose as a class the reward. We would brainstorm rewards. And it was like people wanted to wear their pajamas to school. Or they wanted to bring a stuffed friend or a pizza party or extra playtime at recess. And they even said extra silent reading time. Oh, I was like, really? And it actually a lot of times got all the way down to the end. And they always got persuaded by like the pizza party or the pajama, wear your pajamas to school. But it was like a top runner every single time. I think that's unbelievable. They actually wanted more silent reading time. I love it. So modeling a passion for reading is really important. That's number 2. Number 3, give them lots of choices. Don't get stuck on the whole level thing. Yes, it's important for kids to be reading just right books the majority of time, but don't pigeonhole them. Levels were supposed to be for your instructional purposes. They were not supposed to make kids only be able to read a level G, and they can only be on a level G and that's it. That's actually how we ruin reading for people. We want them to be able to make choices. And yes, we can teach them all these different strategies, and we can show them the Goldilocks strategy, or we can teach them a 5-finger rule, or we can talk to them about, I used to do this close activity with my students, which I think I talked about last week, but maybe not. And so I talked about, and I'll share it with you, I talked about how you choose a book, and it's kind of like how you choose what to wear. Like when you get dressed and you come to school and you go and you play outside on the weekends and those things, the majority of times you are choosing clothes that fit you. And so I would have, because I would always give out 3 shirts. The first thing I did was I'd pass out 3 shirts. One of them would be a toddler size shirt, like literally my son's like 18-month-old shirt, and I'd have like a bigger kid put it on, and then I'd pass out a giant sweatshirt that was like my husband's, who like worked out, so he was like an extra large, and so that would be like draping, they wouldn't even be able to see their hands. And then I would pass out a regular like 7T, like a regular size shirt for their age. And we'd have them all 3 standing there. And then I would use this analogy, and I would say, like, normally, most of the time, we're going to wear this shirt that fits. We're going to wear clothes that fit us. When we go to school, when we play with our friends, we're going to wear a just right outfit. That's what we're going to do most of the time. However, there are times that we need to try on or put on clothes that are tight, that fit us snugly. For example, when we're going swimming and we want to put on a bathing suit, or scuba diving, and we want to put on a wetsuit, or surfing or whatever. And I would say we do that sometimes, and sometimes we do it a lot. That's like choosing a challenging book. Like we pick it because we have a purpose for it. There's a reason why we need this challenging book. Like it might be because we want to learn something new, or we want to, we are interested in the book, or we are excited to eventually read Harry Potter or Diary of a Wimpy Kid or whatever it is. And I'm like, so there is a purpose for wearing a bathing suit sometimes. Would we wear a bathing suit to school? No. We wouldn't wear it all the time, but we would wear it when there was a purpose for it. And so a purpose and interest, they matter. We have to remember that. They matter. So letting kids pick books that are way beyond their level, we have to do that sometimes. It's important. There is a purpose. And then I would say about the droopy big sweatshirt, I would say, and there are times that we want to be comfy. Like we might want to put on a big sweatshirt because we're cold and we want to snuggle up with our mom or dad or sister or brother or whatever. And we would put on a comfy sweatshirt. Would we wear clothes that are too big for us all the time? No, but there's also a purpose. We just want to be comfortable. Just like picking an easy book that's too easy, sometimes we want to be comfortable. Sometimes we want to be able to read it to our brother or sister or our dog, and we don't want to do a lot of reading work. We want it to flow, and we want to work on fluency. And I'm like, there's a purpose for picking an easy book or wearing a comfy sweatshirt. So it's really important for us to think about these things when we allow kids to choose books. It doesn't have to always be the clothes they wear to school. It can be something different. So it's an important thing to remember. So we want to give them lots of choices, and we want them to be able to pick different kinds of books. That's why I had so many, like thousands. I'm talking thousands of books in my classroom. And I think it's important for us to do that and not to pigeonhole them. So you're thinking this is going to be the longest podcast ever if we're only on remarkable idea number 4. But I'm going to go a little faster. So I have to share those things because those are ideas that you can use in your classroom. So number 4, bring them to the library or the media center. You know what? I wasn't very good about this. I thought I had plenty of books in my classroom. And so, of course, they can just pick from all the books I had. They could have switched out their books 1,000 times and still not read all the books. But bringing them to like libraries, media centers, bookstores, they get to see it from a different perspective. They look new. And just like kids when they're playing with their toys, like when you bring them fresh toys or you take them to a friend's house, all of a sudden, even if they have the toy, it becomes something new. That's what it feels like to go into the library or into a media center and look at new books. It's exciting. So it rejuvenates them. So I think it's important. Plus that's another great place where they get to pick for a purpose or an interest. And I think that makes it fun. So I definitely think we need to be doing that. And then number 5, what is that? Number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Number 5, give them time to read. Give them time to read. You're not forcing them to read. You're offering them the opportunity to read. When I had kids that didn't really want to read during that independent reading time, I didn't give them a super hard time if they were just flipping through the pages and looking at the pictures, because they were still gaining information about a story. Pictures are powerful. We can't discount them. And so they most of the time got kind of bored if they didn't want to read, that they ended up reading, but I didn't ever want them to feel forced. I wanted them to think of it as an opportunity. And clearly they did, because they asked for it for free, for extra, as a reward. But again, offering them comfy places really makes a huge difference. Number 6, read for the fun of it. Have a no strings attached reading time. Like, do a chapter book read aloud, or even an audio book. Like, let them read, like listen to you read for the fun of it, or just, they're reading for the fun of it. I can remember I had a student who used to sneak read in his desk. We were in math, doing math, or we were doing social studies or science or something. And he'd have his book inside his desk, like sneaking reading. It was very hard for me to take it away from him, because I'm like, he's reading. Like, isn't that? And this kid went on to go to Emory. Like, he was so smart. He's such a smart kid. And he's now like a junior in college and just doing very well. But anyway, let them read for the fun of it. It's important. And let you read for the fun of it. Number 7, theme your book nook. Like, make it a focal point of your classroom. Like, have a library in your classroom and make it like the center of the universe. I would like deck out my book nooks. They would be decorated according to our school theme every single year. Like, if it was space, it would have this crazy space theme going on. Things would be hanging from the ceiling, and planets and spaceships and whatever. And it was like unbelievable. Or like the year that we had like an ocean theme, I had like a tiki hut in the book nook. And the year we did camping or adventure, I had a tent in the book nook. And I like to make things 3-dimensional on the wall to make it like, this is our place. I calmed down with that later and did like more of like just a pretty book nook, but it still was like relaxing, and books were in baskets and labeled, and they were easy to put away, and they were accessible. And that makes a huge, huge difference, because even when I was in the media center, I change that around. And that kind of goes with I think I'm on number 8. I should have numbered these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. Display your books in an organized way. Like, that kind of goes with the theme. But when you display your books, like when I walked into the media center, all the books were shoved to the back of the shelf, which is a pet peeve of mine. I'm like, bring them forward, people. We need to see the titles. And I also took them out of like just being on a shelf. Like, I put them in baskets. I labeled them. Even in the Dewey Decimal System, they were like, ocean animals, cats, dogs, horses, football, baseball, high-tech vehicles, military, whatever. All these different baskets within that system, so that they can find things easier. They are on display. The front of the book is on display. They can easily flip through the basket to find what they want. It's a million times easier to put away. Do this. I used to do this in my classroom. It made sense in the media center to have it look similar to a classroom. And it's like a transfer. It's transformed. And then above the bookshelves, I have like decorations. So like above the graphic novels, I have a giant Dark Knight, Batman, a giant Batman above the graphic novels. So now I can say, when they're like, where are the Dogman books, or where are the Diary of a Wimpy Kid, or where are the DC or Marvel or whatever. And I'm like, do you see Batman? Underneath there, all those baskets, they're labeled. So I can just send them there from a distance. Where's Mo Willems? Do you see the pigeon and the duckling on the top shelf? Go all the way to the bottom. Mo Willems is down there. And it's like, it makes it so easy. And so it's like coordinated. So I have like a Gator football above the football section, and I have Gator football helmet. And I have like shells above like the ocean animals, and jars of shells and like stuff like that. So it's like, oh, I love it. It's like it has made the whole space look totally different. And when you make it captivating like that, They want to be in it. Number 9, stop testing their reading. Like, don't test their reading all the time. They don't have to, everything they read have to be assessed. Like, if they're doing like a graphic organizer to like share their thinking, great. Yes, they did it. You're done. Or you could do a quick exit ticket, and they just have to like do a quick response on a quick exit ticket, and then you're getting information. But they don't have to be tested on every single thing they read. It makes testing miserable. I mean, testing already is miserable. It makes reading miserable. So we want to stop doing that. Number 10, conquer the log. Once you start forcing kids to read, you start taking the fun right out of it. Like, you don't have to have them log every book they read. I can't imagine writing down everything I read in a day. It's hard enough for me to like keep track of calories, let alone everything I read. I would want to shoot myself. So it's just not, we don't have to do that. We can have a conversation with them. We can ask them what they read. What did you read this weekend? Oh, I read, and they'll tell you. It only takes a few minutes. Are you really looking at the log anyway? Or it just feels like busy work to me. And it makes it miserable for kids. I mean, you can make it a little bit more fun, but I don't know. I just think we have to stop those kinds of things. And they don't have to summarize everything they've read. Like, let's stop some of that. Number 10. I think I'm on 10. I might be on 11. I might even be on 12. All right, well, here's the next one. Start a book club. A book club for fun. Read the book and discuss it. They don't have to do 25 things with it. It's just an enjoyable experience. It's like teaching them how to actually have a real life book club where they actually talk about the characters, and they talk about, what touched them, and they talk about how the character overcame something. And they're more meaningful, authentic conversations about books. It'll change their comprehension. It'll make a huge difference. So it's something to think about. Another of the last two, and that is number 12, ask questions. It's not about grilling them. It's about checking in with them. It's about letting them talk openly about feelings of the characters or problems they've noticed or information they've gathered, and making connections to that. I think those are so important. They better understand stories and books when they're able to do that. And then my last one, number 13. If we treat books like they are magical, kids will grow believing that they are. I just really believe that. So we have to treat them as if they are something so precious and so wonderful. And kids will feel that, and it will happen for them. I think I told you that story, and I don't remember what episode, about working with Apple and my grad school, Full Sail. We were doing a project-based learning. This was in 2011, so this is a long time ago. And we were doing transforming apathy into engagement. I was doing a remediation for my grade level that year. Like, I took a break from the classroom and just did remediation for my whole grade. And it was a great experience because I was getting my master's at the same time. And so at the end of my master's, they wanted me to work with Apple, because they were working with Apple on this project-based learning style. And I was like, totally, I'll do that. And so I had this group of kids who were very apathetic about reading, but I wanted them to convince others to have engagement. So we were like, how do you transform apathy into engagement in reading? That was the question that we came up with. That was basically like the challenge. And the kids had to come up with ideas. So they came up with, they were going to interview this kindergarten class to find out like how they felt about reading. That was the initial part. And so we went to this kindergarten class, and I'm listening to my kids interview, and they're using technology, and they're writing down, things on their computer, and it was so cute. And I meet this kindergartner who is like, just hates reading. She has nothing positive to say. She's so grumpy. She's like, reading is the worst. She just thinks it's awful. And the whole time I'm watching my second graders interviewing this little girl, I'm thinking, I am totally going to get that kid. I am going to get that kid in a couple years. I just knew it. And lo and behold, I get that kid in second grade. But I transformed her. Like, I was determined to get that kid. I was like, I'm going to hook her. It doesn't matter what I do. I'm going to introduce her to all these different kinds of books and all these characters, and I am going to help her fall in love with reading. And I did. And she did. And even at the end of the year, we laughed about it. She's like, and that was when my name was different. She's like, Miss Dralis, she's like, I hated reading, but now I love it. And I'm like, I know. Oh, it was the best. So those are the kinds of moments. That's what we need. You know what? If you're worried about test scores, it will make a difference. It will make a difference. And if you're worried about test scores, think about that. Think about why you are. And like, what does that really mean? Because does a test score really matter in the end? If you can get a kid to love to read, you have just opened so many doors for them. That's all it takes. Seriously, all it takes. All right. I hope that you're feeling a little bit more rejuvenated, because last week I was pretty mad about it and feeling really grumpy myself and feeling like we were like letting some kids down, me included. And I am not going to do that. That is my sole purpose for this year. I have had so many different experiences, but I know that this year is meant for me to capture readers and to plant the seeds and to nurture the soil and let it grow. This One Tired Teacher is ready for some reading. Until next week, sweet dreams and sleep tight.